Things happen to us. They leave a mark on us. They trigger us. They hurt us. They damage us. They whatever us. But it is ultimately up to us to fix us, even if we are not responsible for our own brokenness. And that's the gag of life. Like, so today is August 8th. There is a new moon tonight, which is also the Lion's Gate. I don't know if this interests you, but it does me, so I'm going to share it with you. So yeah, it's the Lion's Gate, and this is the time where it's like destiny, fate, and your overall abundance are kind of coming at a crossroads where it's like manifestation energy. So it's about like going for yours, taking a brave step forward, as well as reclaiming things, parts of you that you've lost, as well as letting go of things that are no longer serving you, things that are burdening to you, or things that attach you to people, places, and things that you're no longer interested in. Whether it means like keeping up appearances, whether it means keeping people's secrets. It's very much of like a ascension process where you're letting go, and then you're also claiming or reclaiming what is your authentic self. So for today, I am doing self-care painting. I am at Prospect Hill Park, and as per usual, I got the canvases, I have the paints, I have the paint brushes up. And we're gonna paint. I'm gonna start off this ceremony by saging the area, and then we are going to focus with the meditative bowl, and then we're going to get into the process painting part. So let me cleanse the area. Ha! Delayed but always on time. Like, I feel like that's just life. I feel like that's just been all 2020, 2021, where you're like, I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to make something a thing. Live my life. I'm trying to manifest. I'm trying to release. I'm trying to whatever. And it's like delayed. But it eventually comes through, because that's just the whirlwind of being a spiritual being, having a human experience. So we're going to sage this energy. We're going to release things that no longer serve us, things that tie us to our lowest vibration, whether it's triggering points, whether it's like, again, people, places, and things, or it's just like you want to live in your authenticity. You want to stand on your truth. You don't want to hold on to secrets. You don't want to hold on to facades. You don't want to hold on to people, places, and things that no longer serve you. And these people could be like your close friends, your family, your co-workers. Places could be like, it's time to move, it's time to separate, it's time to look things for what it is and not what we want it to be, but what it actually is. And things could just be like attachments, like familiarity, or it could be like seniority, or you feel like you are burdened, like someone feels like you owe them something, so you do it because out of like obligation. Whatever the case may be, it's the time to like let that thing go. And whatever you've been fearful about taking the courageous step forward to do, whatever you've been like scared to do or anxious to do or wasn't sure that you could do, this is the time to make it a thing. Even if it's delayed, still do it. So let's do an inhale and an exhale with the same bowl. We're going to do this 3 times. And the purpose that why we do it in threes is like everything comes in threes, but also is to be intentional. As you breathe in, it's like you're hearing the sound at its peak, so that's like at its potent. And then as you hold in that breath and then you release, that's when like the sound in and of itself is starting to like dissipate and becoming lower and lower. So it's like intentionally being here, processing your emotional state as well as your like mental state right now, as well as it allows you to breathe in with the sound, hitting its peak, and then you breathe out as it's decreasing in its sound, if that makes sense. Now, typically I would be asking, what brought you here to Paint Your Truth, but I will tell you why I'm here doing Paint Your Truth. So when it comes to Paint Your Truth, It's really about being intentional, as well as letting your heart just explore, letting your mind just explore without you having to like correct yourself. Oftentimes, we're always in our heads, and we're causing ourselves anxiety because we're projecting, or we have fear where it's like fake evidence appearing as real, where we think this is going to happen. So we act in a way to either make this thing happen the way that we want it to, or we have this thing where we avoid doing something because it's not the outcome that we want. So we're living in a reality that hasn't even really manifested. Where when it comes to process painting, it's about being very intentional and letting yourself just be without you having to like live up to like society status quo, or like respectability politics, or like this is inappropriate. It's allowing yourself just to feel, just to be, just to do. And wherever that takes you in the process of painting, you're going to manifest it onto your canvas. Today's painting session is more so about what self-care looks like to you, or to me, because I'll be painting. So with that in mind, it's like, okay, now I know what I'm painting. Maybe not how I'm going to paint it, or maybe not even what, in a sense of like, I'm going to paint dandelions. Maybe it's not dandelions. Maybe it's just like, okay, self-care. That's a starting point. And wherever that leads me to, whatever that ends up transpiring on the canvas, is what self-care means to me. Now, another question I'd be asking is, what have you discovered about yourself in the last 18 months? Like, since COVID has been rearranging the whole Earth's life, right? All lives on Earth have been distracted, maybe even disturbed, but more so delayed, right? Because of COVID. What about yourself, or your self-care, or your mental health, or whatever the case may be, that you have realized about yourself within the last 18 months? What I learned about myself in the last 18 months is that I'm more capable of being my authentic self, and I don't need permission to be said authentic self. And I mean that in the sense of like, I discovered once I said, for me and everything else in my life, once I said like, I no longer want to engage. I no longer want to be tied to this thing. I no longer want to be the burden, not even the burden, but the barrier of burdens. Kind of like the Grim Reaper that's associated with death. I don't want to be the person that carries everybody else's burden. I don't want you to lay your burdens onto me, because I don't lay my burdens onto other people. As well as like, I don't make my stuff other people's stuff, because I know how heavy my stuff is. So I don't want to burden people with that. So my expectations for me, and what I've discovered about myself in the last 18 months, is like, okay, I no longer want to hold on to other people's burdens. I need to let it be known I no longer want to hold on to other people's burdens. How do I do that? I do that by letting things go. And you'll be surprised about the things that you still hold on to, but you swear up and down that you're over it. It no longer affects you. It was the past. You will be surprised as to how many things that you hold on to that don't serve you. Old memories, childhood wounds, rejections, hurts, things that you should have said but you didn't say it at the moment, or whatever the case may be. Releasing that. And underneath all of that, somewhere, somehow, there's your authentic self, just waiting to be seen, waiting to be heard. And it is your duty, well, for me, because I'm speaking from my own personal experience, it is my duty to not allow people to dump their issue onto me, and me to not feel obligated to solve everybody else's issues when I still got me to figure out. So that's what I discovered in the last 18 months. So this is the portion where I would say, like, what, paint's here, brushes here, canvas here, water cups here, and then some lady donated donuts in the back. There's that. But we're gonna start painting. Before we get into painting, this is lavender. It's an essential oil spray, and it obviously smells like lavender. And lavender is a way of being peaceful. It's kind of like when we drink lavender tea, it's supposed to like calm our nerves. When we drink chamomile tea, that's a way for us to like go to bed early, because that kicks in our sleep mode. So it's kind of like the same thing with lavender. Like, lavender is supposed to make you feel good, as well as it makes you decompress and relax. And that's the energy of process painting. That's the energy of like art therapy. You shouldn't feel anxious about it. You shouldn't feel like it's a competition, it's a test. There is no expectation. I don't expect you to be Bob Ross. Don't expect me to be Bob Ross. We're just here to share space and grace and allow our authentic self to be released. So I think the colors I'm gonna go for. I'm gonna go for the opposite of today. Lucky enough, it's not raining, but it is cloudy. It's Massachusetts. It's global warming. It is what it is. But I think I want to paint something abstract. Like you gotta look into the stars. You gotta see the fairies. You gotta see that je ne sais quoi, that pop, that magic within the painting. It's not a specific thing. I think that's what I'm gonna go for. I want to do light colors, so I'm gonna pick out this like baby blue color, and like you only need a drop. I know when it comes to paint, you're like, oh my goodness, these small little holes, like I'm gonna need a gang of them. When you do that, I promise you, from personal experience and from running these painting workshops, you're gonna end up like this, caked paint that you don't even need, that ends up being wasted. So I don't want to get that close into the camera. I'm pretty sure you can see what I see. And by the time I edit this, I'll zoom it in. But it gets caked up and it gets used. So when we say like a drop, it really does suffice. You don't need more than a drop. So yeah, we're gonna do a drop, and to estimate this drop is like a size of a penny. You really don't need more than the size of a penny, like this. That little thing, just right there. Because we're also going to dilute it with water. So you're going to end up with more paint than you actually intended. So that's the baby blue. I love purple. Purple's my thing. So I'm going to use a drop of purple as well. And the thing about painting in general, if you do need more paint, you can always get more paint, but you can't unsqueeze the tube or whatever you're using. So there's always that. If you're nervous, like, did I get the right amount? Did I not? You can always get more. Like I said, I like purple, so I'm going to double up on purple. And I'm going to continue on the theme of like light colors. And then I like to start off with maybe like 3 to 4 colors. And then as I like see the vision, as I see what I'm painting, whatever it is, then I'll, add more colors. So don't feel as if like you need to see all the paint, you need to add all the paint, you need to add all the colors, just letting things just ride out. So much things in life we don't have control over, and the small things that we do have control over, oftentimes we overdo it. So just let it be, whatever it is. Making sure the cap is tight, and then these end up being my colors. So a little bit of yellow, a little bit of green, the 2 purples, and I like to dip my paint brush in the water first, get it damp, brush the excess water on the edge of the cup, and then I'm going to start off with some yellow. I don't know what that was. Ooh. But that's how I handle bugs, okay? I don't freak out, I don't yell, I don't try to beat it. I just suggest it, sway it elsewhere, okay? Interestingly enough, I've never gotten bit by a mosquito. I've never gotten bit by a tick or anything. Never got bitten by the bee. Just my luck. I just never had that experience before. Especially when it comes to mosquitoes, because people will be like, all the time, because again, this has never happened to me. People will be like, oh, I just went for a walk, or I went to the grocery store, I just left my house essentially, and I just got bit by like 5 mosquitoes, and I'm like, really? And then people are like, yeah, like mosquitoes are the worst. I'm like, really? And until recently, I found out like, yeah, most people have that experience with like bugs. I guess I'm just natural bug repellent. Like I don't have those experiences. At least not getting bitten. Like they might land on me, but they don't bite me, which I'm appreciative of. Because because your girl is very sensitive. My skin is very sensitive. But yeah, I'm just stroking it. A no real method, just stroking the canvas and talking to the camera, essentially. Hopefully your day is just as peaceful too. I know it's Sunday. Sunday tends to be the day where people are restful, people are more intentional, they take things slow. Also tends to be the day that people um, are more like religiously bound, if that's a thing. So people are typically at church or doing some type of religious ceremony. So maybe that's what you're doing. This is a weekend, so I hope you are practicing self-care. Self-care Saturday, self-care Sunday. And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It literally can be painting in the nature, painting in the park. Sorry, I kind of brain fart, but nonetheless, it can be something as simple as just painting in nature. Whatever grounds you, whatever gives you like you time. Because again, we live in a world where we oftentimes don't have time for self. So make time for self, even if it's the smallest thing. It doesn't have to be extravagant. You don't have to wait till it's your birthday. You could do something as simple as literally painting in the park. You deserve it. And who's going to take care of you if you take care of everything but you? And since it is a new moon, are y'all going to do anything special for said new moon? Me in particular, I always have my intention and my manifestations that I have. I'm just checking out the butterfly to the right of me. Yeah, so I usually have my manifestations. They don't really change. It's pretty much the same 10 things I want. But for full moon ceremonies, I still do releasing of, again, people, places, and things. And I know it sounds kind of like methodic, like I say that often, but if you actually sit, not while you're painting, because you want your brain to just like let go and let God, but like when you have time to meditate, when you have time to self-reflect, because that's important, you'll see like there's a lot of things, trying to keep it PG, there's a lot of things that you may still be holding on to, and it doesn't have to be anything traumatic, it doesn't have to be like da, da, da. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's just like you just see like, okay, that still affects me, like the way that person said something, or I'm still holding on to that thing of the past, and you realize like, wow, that's so inconvenient to self, because you could have been using that space, you could have been using that time for anything else other than this thing that you're holding on to. And that's really the point of like taking care of self, so you can have that self-reflection, because when we're on the go, again, we don't have time to sit down and self-reflect the way that we should. I just thought, like, what if art class was like a form of child therapy and we didn't even think about it, we didn't even know it? It's interesting how, like, as children, we want to grow up so fast. We think we got all the answers. We know exactly what we're going to do, what exactly we're going to be. At least a lot of kids, very confident in whatever answer that they give, right? And then somewhere along the way of like life and adulting, we get like bruised, we get like shaken, our self-confidence gets knocked up a little bit, bruised a little bit, and then we forget like what was the magic of life. We forget like our authentic self. We forget why we do the things that we do. And sometimes we don't forget. Sometimes we're told like it's not okay, it's not appropriate, or it's not something that is good, or not even really good. It's more so it does not fit our narrative, therefore you need to stop doing that. It's one of those things. It's like more like respectability politics or status quo type of thing. And then you play the game, and then you realize that the game isn't as fun as you thought it would be or could be. Or you realize that you are no longer interested in playing the game. And then it leaves you in a space of like, okay, if I don't play the game, then what else? And that what else is never solved for us. You got to figure out what else is. You got to find out like what's the next step outside of the what else. And that's the mystery of life. And I can tell you that from a personal experience, where it's like, when you don't know that, what else? Because I am that person who always wants to know, because there's a sense of security in that. There's a sense of like self assurance and control. When you know what else, what's next. And when you don't know what's next, it leaves you feeling out of control. And that's a scary place to be, especially if you thrive in control, or you thrive in kind of like a solo energy, but more so, it could be isolation, it could be introversion or antisocial, but it's more so the way I think about it. It's like it doesn't go your way, so you kind of like give up, and you shouldn't give up. And I feel like what I've been learning in 2021 is to not give up. Whatever it is, just do it, like Nike. And half the battle is doing it, literally. Because if you allow those like messages in your head that tell you it can or it won't, like literally, it can't because nothing's going on, and it won't because like literally nothing is going on. And it's not easy. It's not easy to live in your truth. It's not easy to go a different direction. But like you kind of gotta do it. And I know it sounds like kind of crazy, but it's kind of like if I know it's like the worst example, but it kind of really hits what I'm trying to say. It's kind of like if Christopher Columbus never sailed the world, as atrocious as that history is, we wouldn't know as much as we know about other species and other people and other places. Not because Christopher Columbus is necessarily the first, but like the impact of his legacy has like left. Kind of like Albert Einstein. If Albert Einstein wasn't like working in his lab trying to figure things out, then like will we know what we know? That's the point. If nothing's ever done, then will we know what we know? Someone got to be the first. Someone has to break the mold. Someone has to crack the code. So, like, why would it not be you? That's the point. I feel like I said that with more words than I actually needed to say that, but there it goes. If you don't do it, then who else? Literally. So, and then when you do it, you find out that it's not as scary as you thought it would be. And it's not as crazy as you thought it would be. And you realize that a lot of it is just in your head. And that sound in your head could really be the voice of, let's say, a parent who was like a helicopter parent, or a parent who's neglectful or wasn't supportive. And you realize that you're holding on to a voice that's not even your own voice. That's like the criticism of whomever who made you feel insecure or knocked you off your confidence. You can't live for other people. You definitely don't want to live in your head where like you're your own ops, like you work against your best interest. And when you have that self-reflection, even as something simple as process painting, you realize, again, the things that don't serve you, how it doesn't serve you, and what you can do to better exist within peace, within self. It's interesting because I remember having conversations with people in the past, and I said something to the effect of like, you know, we don't get to choose our lives, our parents, or anything, right? And things happen to us, and it's not necessarily our fault, but like we are obligated to fix it, whatever the it is. And I know it sucks so bad to even hear that, because it's like, it sounds like, oh, well, why am I responsible for what someone else did? Like, they did me this way, therefore, like, it's their job to atone it, to fix it. But a part of it kind of is like, well, what if they never fix it? What if they never atone it? What if they never take responsibility for it? Are you going to live in the energy of hurt? Are you going to live in the energy of bitter? Are you going to live in the energy of like, I'm broken? Or are you going to unfortunately have to lick your own wounds, mend these stories? Sometimes you don't get closure. And when you don't get closure, what do? You can't sit in that energy of brokenness forever, because I also read energies of a tarot reader. What you put out there is very much what you get internally. That's what you get within the world. So if you embody the energy of hurt, okay, you're hurt, rightfully so, you're hurt. Whatever the situation is, you're hurt. Then you walk in the energy of hurt, victimization. So then who do you think you attract after that? You attract the same energy signature that broke you, because again, you're embodying the energy of victimhood. So you end up in different ways and shapes and form. It's not the same thing for everybody, but you end up being re-victimized in different situations. Let's say it's a work situation where someone takes advantage of you. They don't give you credit for your work, or they take your credit and make it theirs. That's a way of like victimizing you, because they're bullying you essentially. Could be in a new relationship where like the person isn't consistent, or the person lies, the person leads you on. Like that's a form of, them being predatory and being a victim. So you're playing the same narrative in different ways, shapes, and forms in your life, and you don't even know it, because not only, but a part of it is feeling comfortable being the victim. And you have to ask yourself, why is that energy, if it relates to you in any way, shape, or form, why is that energy resonating with you? And then what can you do to get out of the energy of being a victim? And again, don't know everybody's story. I got a story of my own too. But it's not about who's right, who's wrong, as opposed to, do you really want to live in the energy of being a victim? Do you really want to be in the energy of consistently carrying that load of heartbreak, carrying that load of insecure, carrying the load of discontent or unfulfillment? Like, do you want to live the rest of your life like that? And if the answer is no, then yes, it is up to you to fix you, even if you didn't break you. And that's the gag of being like a human. And the thing about it is, the way that karma works, even if you don't press the issue, even if you don't try to like seek vengeance, whomever hurt you in any way, shape, or form not only knows that they hurt you, not only knows that they were in the wrong for hurting you, but they're also dealing with karma for what they did that caused you hurt, the consequence of their actions via you not being in their lives. So don't always think that someone has gotten away with doing whatever, because that's not always the case. You don't always know what's going on in the background of the spiritual realm, on like their destined path. Everything catches up with everybody eventually. Ask Jeffrey Epstein. I'm gonna get this white skin. And it's sense of like, let's say it's not a physical pain, it could be an emotional pain, right? The pain of like rejection, because that's real. I know we live in an age where everybody's like, I'm a savage, I have no feelings, I don't do relationships. Interestingly enough, there was a study not too long ago that said like basically millennials and Gen Xers, and it's predicted for the alphas and the Zs, the generation after millennials, that they too will lead the same life. And what it is basically less friends, less friendships, less intimacy, less security, less like a communal aspect. Like, on top of dealing with anxiety, on top of dealing with whatever emotional, psychological state, the fact that a lot of people don't have like that nuclear base that they can come to and lay their burdens to, and not even just their burdens, but like, check if you're right, check if it's your ego, check if you're on your right path. Someone to tell you like, hey, I suggest you do this, or like, hey, like that was trash, don't do that shit no more. Whatever the case may be, oftentimes we're living in isolated bubbles, crashing into each other, and like not understanding why we might have everything in a row. Like, let's say we've accomplished this, we have this education, we live in this zip code, whoop-de-woo, but we're still unfulfilled. So what was the point? So I think it's okay to say you're not okay, but it's also okay to say that you want more out of life, or you want more intentional relationships, or like, you're not feeling well, like on an emotional, psychological level. It's interesting how people pre the pandemic were like, oh, mental health is not really a thing, and people are just snowflakes and they need to get over themselves, and woo-de-woo-de-woo. The pandemic happened, and a lot more people are talking about mental health services and the importance of mental health care, and the importance of like those soft sciences where people are like, oh, you can't get a job because you got a bachelor's in psychology. Bachelor's in psychology doesn't mean much. Pandemic happens, now everybody needs psychological care. And that's not a way of me saying ha 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 ha. It's more so in a way of like, let's be real. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm not okay. There's nothing wrong with saying like I need mental health care. I need rest. Like I'm feeling these things and I don't know why. It's okay to advocate for yourself, especially as Americans, because we live in a country and like society in general that tells you like you should figure everything out by yourself. You should know everything by yourself. You should get this thing of life and adulting by yourself. And when you're not able to do it by yourself, you feel like you're a failure. And that's not the case. That's not the case at all. Because you'd be surprised at how many people don't got it together, but fake that they got it together because they too have not lived in their authentic self and they're living in other people's heads, trying to keep up with the Joneses or trying to keep up with appearances or trying to do this, that, or the third. That's inauthentic. So you're on your right path, essentially, whatever path that is. Get some tea. Get some pillow. My legs, got my legs. My legs are falling asleep. But yeah, this thing called like it's not perfect roadmap at this point. But when you're authentic yourself, you'll know what is for you and what's not for you. A part of this is not necessarily the Leo gate with the new moon that's happening tonight. But when it comes to Leo energy, because we're in Leo season, I'm a fixed sign, I'm a Taurus. These things intrigue me. I don't know if it intrigues you, but it intrigues me. To me, it's like a science, another form of science. But this is a fixed energy, Leo. Leos are very courageous, a high vibrational Leo. Not everybody's the same, and not everybody is where they're supposed to be at on their life path, as well as not everybody's living in accordance to their authentic self. So I say this to say it's like a high vibrational Leo, someone who's courageous, someone who's passionate, someone who's assertive, someone who is very brave, someone who tends to be good looking or dresses well, but there's substance there, there's depth there. It's not just like a good looking present, but like once you open the box, there's nothing in there. So in essence, like that's the gist of a Leo. And a low vibrational Leo might be someone who's cowardly, might be someone who drops the ball, or might be someone who comes in and then leaves or promises things and they don't deliver. Very much of a flake, or very much of that Eros energy, that bleeding love, it comes and it goes type of energy. And it also speaks to like abuse. It could speak to like child abuse. It could speak to like childhood abuses. So this might be a time where things might trigger that energy, and you might have to deal with it. Leo is also the house of like family in regards to children, childhood, creativity. That like when I think of Leo, I think of like Six Flags. I think of like amusement park energy, like that type of energy where everything is just bliss. And a low vibrational Leo is someone who's like living for the limelight, living for like people's validation, or you know, I look good, or these are my clicks, or you know, and even devious things of like abuse. So those emotions and feelings might come up too. And again, when we're talking about Leo, we're talking about children. So like childhood things, your childhood, children in general. Maybe you're wanting to have kids. Maybe you're wanting to expand your family, your nuclear family. Might be something that comes up during this season as well. So with the Leo new moon, the universe is asking you to address that, however that relates to you, if it indeed relates to you. Because there might be some chapters that you haven't looked at, certain things that you haven't closed, certain things that you haven't said. And how does that affect you? How does that allow you to be your authentic self, or disallows you to be your authentic self? How is that hindering you or helping you? Because sometimes we hold on to secrets or hurts and pains, not even because it's ours. We hold it for other people because we understand if we were to release the pain, the burdens, even the hurts that they've caused us, if we return that energy or we show them like a reflection of themselves, they wouldn't be able to handle it. So sometimes we hold it for them, and it's not even our burden to carry, it's not our package to carry, it's not our hurt to carry, but we carry it because we understand that they wouldn't be able to deal with the ish that they serve, and that's not true to self either. Why should you carry someone else's burdens? Why should you play the Grim Reaper or Hamper Helper, or whatever the case may be, where you're holding ish that's not even yours because you're trying to protect someone, and that someone or people may not have the same feelings for you. Like, you're trying to preserve their feelings while they're ishing on yours. Why is it okay for them to ish on your feelings, but you're over here cradling them like a baby? That's not to say that you need to like with the same ish that they give you, but it is an opportunity for you to set boundaries. It is an opportunity for you to call people out on their ish. It is an opportunity for you to speak your truth, because that's important too. It's important to be heard. It's important to speak it. It's important to release it, because that also accumulates onto the things that we hold on to when we don't speak our truth, because we're trying to preserve other people's feelings. But what about our own feelings? Do we not deserve for our feelings to be regarded and respected and heard? So sometimes within like that superwoman, superman complex, whatever it is, or like I just love so much, I just care so much, I don't want to hurt them, but it's like, but you know you're also hurting yourself when you're not able to be authentic. So it is not fair to self. Of course that's not fair to self. And it doesn't have to make you the bad guy. I think with that mentality, it comes down to you don't want to hurt other people, you don't want to be seen as the bad guy. But it's like, again, living in a reality that doesn't exist. You calling people out doesn't make you a bad guy. It means that you have self-respect and boundaries, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if anybody tells you that you're not supposed to have self-respect, you're not supposed to have boundaries, that you're supposed to just take ish just to take ish, that is not someone who cares about you. And that should let you know how far your relationship has gone, and perhaps reevaluating if the relationship needs to continue in its existence how it currently is. Meaning, continue on with the same old, or drop it and move on fresh solo. Or you might even find out like a lot of people didn't want to say it, and once you said it, they're like, "Oh, someone said it. Oh, thank God." I mean, I didn't want to say it, but since it's out there, you might be the person to say it that everybody wanted to say it. Everybody felt the elephant in the room. Everybody saw the pink elephant, but they didn't want to say anything. Now that you said it, it's out in the open. Now it's like, "Ooh, okay, let's talk about it." Or even, it's not fair for you to allow people to believe something about you that's not true. Like, let's say there's a misconception around something that happened in the past, and you don't clarify that because you are okay with people disliking you and telling the truth, because the truth would like not only clear your name but like hold someone else accountable. So you rather like don't do that to yourself either. I'm speaking in general, just in general in life, in any circumstance, in any role that you play. Do not be treacherous to self. Be your own best ally, even if other people are offended. It's interesting because I started painting, and it was just me. And then over time, people in this area like kind of gathered in their own little like groupings, or they're doing whatever. And it's just like that. It's just the energy that you're bringing, that you exude. It can pull people in. Just like again, if you're in an energy of like let's say minimalization, people might come around you because they see that you're a quote unquote weak, and that's not to say that you are. That's not for me to say that you aren't. I'm just saying people might interpret your nonverbals, the way that you carry yourself, your maybe mousy voice, or whatever the case may be, like as someone as weak, as someone who needs something outside of themselves, and they might be coming into your life as that promise key or the guru, or they'll solve it, or they'll validate it, or whatever the case may be, and they come in and they don't actually deliver. But also, on the flip side, when you have the energy of inviting, the energy of illumination, the energy of confidence, the energy of je ne sais quoi, ba ba boom, people gravitate to that too. There's a reason why Apple could literally repackage the same product for the last 5 years with no brand changes, but still will have a line down the block of people who want to buy the same product, but like in a different color or a different size. It's the energy, it's the illusion, it's the mystique, it's the non-verbals, it's just that je ne sais quoi, that blah, blah, boom. Even if it only lasts just as long as that commercial. I literally have no idea what I'm painting, but it feels right. Let me stretch out this leg. Oh. Whew. You know what's interesting? Like when you're a kid, you don't know much, obviously. And again, you think you have all the answers to life. And then when you're an adult, it's like being a child is like the practice run of like how you see life, what your principles are, your moralities, and so on and so forth. And then you become an adult, and then life, God, the universe is like, go. So like, see if this actually resonates, like your beliefs, your ideologies, your religion, whatever that was installed in your childhood. Like, go out and perform that and see if it actually works. And then you become an adult, and you're like, oh wow, I was not as ready as I thought I was. But that's life. You can never actually be ready. You can prepare, but like then there's go time, and you're gonna have to perform what you've prepared, whether it's like on a whim, whether it's deeply ingrained in your shadow, your subconscious, whether it's like programming. Then you got to test it out in a real world and see if it actually relates, if it's actually real, if it actually makes sense. And sometimes you discover like, no, absolutely not. Or sometimes you discover like, yeah, absolutely so. But you would never know if you never tried. And that's something else I've learned. You'll never know if you don't do it. You'll never know if you don't try. And you might even like surprise yourself. You might even shock yourself. Like this is like the adult version of saying, I think I can, I think I can. You got to. And interestingly enough, up to this scenery, you're only seeing behind me, which is like the monument. And I guess when I'm done, I'll do a little tour of sorts so you can see the area. It's really nice. It's very pleasant. It's literally like nature meets city, which I freaking adore. But walking up here, child, that's a whole great, like, there's stairs. It's steep. It's like a hill, walking up a hill. But like once you get to the top, which is this area, it's actually pretty worth it. It's pretty green. It's pretty nature. It's low key. It's nice. It's not too much sound, background sound. So I feel like that's kind of like the metaphor of like, you'll never know unless you like climb the big hill, and then once you climb the big hill, you might actually enjoy the view. Even if it was a whole troop and a half, you would just to get to the top, but at least you got to the top, and that's really all that matters.
Okay. 1/3. 2/3
Even though the sun is blocked, it's still warm, it's still nice, but it's not that like overbearing. The sun is in your eyes, like you're burning, cooked alive type of teens. It's kind of perfect. Besides the fact that it's really, really gray, and it gives you like that nervousness that it might rain, but it's not going to rain at all. It's just gray as hell. But the weather is pretty perfect. It's not too hot, not too cold. So if you're seeing this video, which I'll be uploading onto my YouTube channel, there's a good chance you're from Massachusetts. But if you're not from Massachusetts, this I do process painting around the state, more so like the metro Boston area. So I do them within nature. Last time I did this in Davis Square in Somerville. And like the years before that, I've done it in Hyde Park, the North End, and different places in general. So if you're ever in Massachusetts or you live in Massachusetts and you would like to have a more, I guess you could say, refined version of Paint Your Truth, where I do it with a group of other people and we go through the process and what is the, not necessarily expectation of process painting, but like what will you experience, and you would like to have one within your group or within your network, your family, your friend circle, whatever, you can always reach out to me. Everything that you'll need to know, like every YouTuber, will be in the description box down below. And as always, I provide the materials, the paints, the paintbrushes, the canvases, the easels, the palettes, and the water and the water cup, the painting cup. All you gotta do is just show up and be willing to go through the process. I I literally had no idea what I was going to paint until I got into the process of painting, and now I kind of have an idea of what I'm painting, and I can't wait to show y'all. I'm excited about it. Again, I never know what I'm going to paint until I get into painting, as well as this is something I've never painted before, and it has a lot of symbology behind it. So when I'm done, I'll reveal my grand masterpiece and tell you what it is. But back to me thinking that when we were children, we had like art class, we had music class, gym too. Like those were forms of like releasing. Like those were forms of like therapeutic routine things that we had, and we didn't really know what it was until like we became adults and we realized like, oh, like gym class is not just for gym class. Like you really do gotta keep like physical fitness to some degree. Like, oh, it's not just music class. Like if you really wanted to be a musician or do anything musical, like you would have to actually know how to read music. Like you realize those things matter. And a lot of people think when it comes to paint or painting or anything artsy, you either got to be like a well-renowned this, that, and the third, or you got to be a kid. And it's like, no, like you could be anybody and you can paint and you can paint anything and it's still gorgeous and it still is remarkable regardless of what it is and who painted it. That's the great thing about art. It is for one's interpretation, period. That's literally the end. Period and the end. It's your own interpretation. And it's other people's interpretation. Some people will instantly get it, other people won't get it. Some people will like it, some people like that my taste, and that's okay because we're all different. And sometimes art really doesn't have a thing. It doesn't really have a reason why. It just is. Which for people like me who are control freaks, it's kind of hard to let things just be just is. But you can. Especially if you just trust in the process, which is like 95% of life, trusting the process. I want to travel more. I feel like before the pandemic, I lived, but like after the pandemic and everything, I literally mean everything. I'm talking about conversations, I'm talking about protests, I'm talking about virality, I'm talking about deaths, I'm talking about vaccines, I'm talking about just the way of life that happened between October 2020 to now. I feel like I haven't really been living to like my most ultimate or optimal self, in a sense of like doing, being, traveling, seeing. And I don't know about y'all, but do y'all have plans after whatever safety means to you, whatever marks okay for you to move around the country? If you're already moving, maybe you got the vaccine, you're like, all right, I'm good, I'm straight, I'm going to do what I want to do. But for those of you who have not engaged in traveling, like, do you plan on doing it? Do you want to keep it safe and keep it local? Do you want to travel international? And if you do want to travel international, where would you go? If you want to travel locally, like state to state, where would you go? I've always wanted to, but I've never actually put any real effort into going to each 50 state. And I know like that sounds so bucket listy, and I feel like everybody at one point have said that they want to do it, but like most people don't. But I kind of actually do want to do that. I do want to go to every state, and I don't want to do the typical touristy thing. I actually want to do things that are like, yeah, sightseeing. Like to go to New York and not see the Statue of Liberty is normal, but like when you think of New York, you think like Statue of Liberty, Manhattan. Like if you don't go to those things, we're kind of like, what was the point of going to New York? But I wouldn't really want to do strictly touristy things. I would want to do things like the natives from those states do. But I would like to venture off. Like that was the point. That was the point. Sometimes I add more words than actually needs to be said. But yeah, I would like to go to all the states. I probably would start with the Northeast because that's where I'm actually located. And then I would travel probably south. Yes. Or I would travel up north to like Maine, and then I would like cross west. I don't know. I haven't really figured it out because again, I haven't given it much thought. But I would want to travel. But I would want to travel where I just go through like state to state to state to state, and like whatever state that I finish it off with, like I'm done. I don't want to go state to state to state, but I got a U-turn back to a state that I've already been to. No, I just want to go state to state to state to state to state, and then finish. But yeah, I think it's important to just do, to dream, to be, to exist, and give yourself space and grace in the process. And sometimes when you talk to there's like long periods of like silence, and that's okay too. It's interesting because you would think the process would mean like people are talking, 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 which sometimes that is, depending on the group, the day, the energy, people are more talking, and other times people don't really do much talking, and that's when you know like people have hit like their like me moment, like their me time, their me zone, when they're not talking because they're just letting thoughts happen, memories happen, the energies flow, they're just intrigued in whatever they're painting, and they're getting lost in the process, and just allow themselves for space to feel. And it will get messy, depending on you as a painter, but it will get messy. So if you don't like mess, then wear the clothes that you don't mind getting messy. Or be a careful painter as well. Either or. It's been like over an hour and 37 minutes, and like literally time has flown by. I haven't even thought about like the time, and it's literally like that when you're painting, when you're just letting things flow, like the energies flow, your thoughts flow, just being one with self, being present with self. You'll be surprised how time will fly by, and you won't be like, oh my god, time gone by, what was I doing? You don't feel that. You're just like, yeah, it flew by, and I enjoyed every moment of it. Not thinking consciously of like what's next, just being at peace with self, peace of mind. Alrighty. I think I'm almost done. I got like a few things I think I can do it in 10 minutes. It's not a rush as opposed to actually do want to lay down, lay down. I actually want to actually eat something and lay down. But I enjoy the process. It never feels like a chore. And truth be told, I've been doing process painting all throughout the pandemic. So I really enjoyed this time for me giving myself space and grace to get into my own self care, my own wellness. So I've done paintings and canvases that took me a few days to complete. So this is small fish in comparison. And another thing that's important about self care, whether it's painting or anything else, it's when you're busy taking care of everybody else and you don't bring that back into self, you don't bring that back into self, then how are you going to continue on your routine, taking care of business, taking care of people, especially if you're in like those nurturing fields like a teacher or a caregiver, or let's say even a mother or a wife or just a woman, a man, or whatever. How do you give your best self to everybody else, but you can't give it to yourself? So another thing with like taking care of yourself, it's not even selfish; it's mandatory. Like, how are you going to be able to take care of other people when you don't even know how to give to yourself, how to replenish self? I think I may be done. Interestingly enough, I think I might be Oh. So let me zoom in the camera and then I will show you what I painted. It's actually pretty reminiscent of another painting that I did. I'll probably add it somewhere in the video to show you like what I mean. But like this is kind of like divine chaos, and that's what I got, especially when I started doing this portion where the yellow is seeping into the blue. And the last painting that I painted for Paint Your Truth at the Art Beat Festival, it was the sun shining on a tree. And whenever I'm lost and I don't know what in particular I want to paint, I painted trees because, like, look at trees. Trees are very solid. When I show you, like, the atmosphere around here, you'll see what I mean. Trees are like an indicator of civilization, an indicator of life. If there's no trees, then it's pretty dry, and there pretty much is no life, or life that is like fighting for survival because there's scarce resources. But when you think of trees, you think of plentiful, you think of vegetation, you think of fruits, you think of shade, and you think of all the things that trees do to provide for not just us as humans, but like earth, nature in and of itself. So with this particular painting, it's kind of like a mixed match of just energies. Like sometimes you just don't know, but you want to know, and sometimes things come to you and not the timing that you want it to come. Sometimes life surprises you. Sometimes life pulls the rug right underneath your feet, and then it expects you to keep on going. And sometimes we feel devastated. Sometimes we feel out of order, or like things aren't going our way. But life has a funny way of like changing ish and switching it upside down, and then somehow, some way, it makes sense. And through the chaos, through the divine chaos within this particular portrait, this symbolizing something of a tornado, it's like even in the chaos, it makes sense. It blends together, it flows together, and it matters. And for me, how I felt about this particular process of painting, I was just calm. I was very anxious the whole weekend, which this is nothing new to me. I've been doing this for over 6 years, but I felt very anxious because it felt like a new beginning because I'm doing this after COVID. I'm doing this within my own neighborhood, the backyard of my own neighborhood as well. I was doing this out of like a sheer love of joy of painting, but like doing it on my own accord after everything has been everything. And it felt very nervous. It felt very anxious. I was a little bit, not fearful, but a little bit like hesitant. But I still made it happen because I would not be okay with myself if I didn't do it. Period. I set up shop and I got into painting, and it just felt normal once I got into the process and just let my mind roam, not think about life, not think about expectations and outcomes and this, that, and the third. Just being here in this moment, this day, this time, this grass. It had just allowed me to go back to the state of calmness that painting does for me, and process painting in general does for me, and it just let life just be. It gave me a sense of peace of mind. And that's how I felt about the process. And the way I'm going to implement this particular portrait into my life is just like to go with the flow. When I see these colors, they're kind of like the wind. The wind doesn't have a particular trajectory, it just happens. And when it comes to a tornado, thank goodness in Massachusetts we don't got no tornadoes. But, or not often. It doesn't have a particular path, right? Or a tornado might hit a community, but it hits like maybe a few houses, and then the house next door gets destroyed, but the house after it's perfectly fine. That's kind of like divine chaos. You really just don't know, but you just got to go through it. And wherever it lands, whatever happens, which is the aftermath, what are you going to do after that? Like life happens,
unfortunately, travesties happen, breakups happen, pain happens, trauma happens, this and the third happens. But then what? Because, like I said in the beginning of this process, things happen to us. They leave a mark on us. They trigger us. They hurt us. They damage us. They whatever us. But it is ultimately up to us to fix us, even if we are not responsible for our own brokenness. And that's the gag of life. Like, it sounds really, really harsh, and it sounds like it's unfair. And I guess to a degree, you can argue about how unfair it is. But at the end of the day, you still owe it to you to put you back together. And like, that's what process pacing is to me, and that's what the process meant to me, and this is what I depicted. How will I implement this? I think I'm just gonna give myself a lot more space to just be, and like, just not be so invested in the outcome, but just be invested in the process, because it's process meeting. But just in life in general, just don't be so gun-ho to the outcome. Just let things happen. Especially me, I'm a control freak, I'm a Taurus. I like things the way I like them, and when it doesn't happen, it's like the whole world is upside down. But in reality, it's not. Maybe my ego's a little bit bruised, or maybe I'm just overthinking things. I'm just, jumping to the next highest extent. um, but ultimately, everything has its purpose, everything has its meaning, and through the thick of it, you'll figure it out, right? Whether that means your house is perfectly fine after the tornado, and use that house insurance or mortgage insurance, homeowners insurance, whatever insurance, or you have to take all of that out and rebuild from the bottom. But like, wherever the chips lay, whatever happens after it all, whatever it all is, there's still life after that. There's still time to change, rearrange, implement, take away, or whatever that suits you. So that was a long ass spiel to say, like, basically the way I'm gonna implement this into my self care is to give myself enough grace and space to just be, because I'm human just like everybody else, and I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be um, loved by me as much as I love other people, places, and things. And I deserve a healthy and functional mental health like everybody else, period. So that's what I painted. Thank you for being going through the process with me. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end, please give me a thumbs up. Comment down below and let me know if process painting is something that you've done, something that you're interested in doing, and all that jazz. And again, if you're in Massachusetts, this is something that intrigues you. You would like to do this personally, or like to do it with whatever network you're in, friendship, co-workers, relationship, whatever. I'm available, and all the details will be down below. And with all that being said, y'all, be blessed, be enlightened, be loved. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next video.